Hello, welcome to another science lecture to help you rest. Tonight, we will talk about what deep-sea creatures eat and more. This is a very deep dive into the world of ocean food at its most basic and most strange levels. We will explore the creatures that live far below the sunlight zone and how they manage to find enough to eat in one of the most empty places on Earth. We will cover the different ways they get their food, the strange things they eat, and how these food sources shape their lives. If you would like, subscribe or comment to help the channel. Lie back, close your eyes, and let the quiet voice and steady flow of scientific facts help you drift off. Part 1. The deep sea environment and the foundation of food. We begin our journey into the deep ocean. It is a world very different from the one we know. It is a place of extreme conditions. These conditions make life very hard, but life is there, and these creatures must eat. Understanding what they eat starts with understanding where they live. Imagine the surface of the ocean. It is bright. The sun shines down. The water is often warm, especially near the top. There is air. There is a lot of life. Fish swim everywhere. Plants grow. Birds fly above. This is the world most of us know. But as we go deeper, everything changes. Every single thing changes. The deeper you go into the ocean, the more things change. Let us think about the first extreme condition: pressure. When you are on land, there is air above you. This air pushes down on you. This is called atmospheric pressure. It is not very much. You do not feel it. But water is much heavier than air. Much, much heavier. Water is very dense. It pushes down much, much more. As you go deeper in the ocean, more and more water is above you. This means more and more weight, more and more pressure. For every 10 meters you go down, the pressure increases by about 1 atmosphere. An atmosphere is the normal air pressure at the surface. So, at 10 meters deep, you have 2 atmospheres of pressure pushing on you. One from the air above the water, and one from the 10 meters of water. Now, imagine going down hundreds of meters. Imagine going down thousands of meters. The deep ocean is not just hundreds of meters deep. It is thousands of meters deep. The average depth of the ocean is about 4,000 meters. That is 4 kilometers. That is a very, very long way down. At 4,000 meters, the pressure is about 400 times what it is at the surface. 400 times. This is an enormous amount of pressure. Think about what 400 times the pressure means. Imagine an elephant standing on your thumb. That is a lot of pressure. Now imagine many elephants, hundreds of elephants, standing on a very small space. That is what the deep-sea creatures experience. This pressure is strong enough to crush most things we know. It would crush a submarine that is not built specially. It would crush a human being instantly. Our bodies are full of air. Air spaces would be squashed flat. Our bones would break. Our cells would be squeezed. So, how do deep-sea creatures deal with this crushing pressure? They are built differently, very differently. Most deep-sea creatures do not have air spaces. They do not have lungs. They do not have swim bladders filled with gas, like many shallow water fish. Their bodies are mostly water. Water does not compress much, so they are like bags of water. They are squishy, they are soft. This helps them resist the pressure. The pressure inside their bodies is the same as the pressure outside their bodies, so they do not get squashed. Their cells also have special chemicals inside them. These chemicals help their proteins work under high pressure. Proteins are very important for life. They do many jobs in the body. If they are squashed, they do not work. These special chemicals stop the proteins from getting squashed and damaged. They keep them working even under these immense pressures. This is one of the first big challenges for life in the deep sea. It is a very, very big challenge. Now, let us think about the next extreme condition: cold. The surface of the ocean can be quite warm, especially near the equator. You can swim in warm water, but as you go down into the ocean, the temperature drops. The sunlight does not warm the deep water. The sun's rays can only reach a certain depth. After that, the water gets colder and colder. The deep ocean is very, very cold. Most of the deep ocean is close to freezing. It is often just above 0 degrees Celsius. This is about 34 degrees Fahrenheit. It is not exactly freezing, but it is very close to freezing. Imagine living your whole life in water that is almost freezing. It is extremely cold. It is always cold. It never gets warmer. Why is this coldness a problem for life? Cold temperatures slow everything down. Chemical reactions slow down. Metabolism slows down. Metabolism is all the things your body does to stay alive, like using food for energy, growing, moving. When it is cold, these processes happen much slower. This means deep-sea creatures live a slower life. They move slower. They grow slower. They use less energy. This is an adaptation. It is a way to survive, but it is also a very hard way to live. Everything is slow because it is so cold. The cold is constant. It never changes. It is always just above freezing. This is a very, very cold place to live. The third extreme condition is darkness, complete darkness. When you swim in the ocean, near the surface there is light. The sun shines down. The light goes through the water. But light does not go very deep. Water absorbs light very quickly. The colors of light disappear one by one. First, red light disappears, then orange, then yellow. Green and blue light go deepest, but even they disappear after a few hundred meters. Below about 1,000 meters, there is no sunlight at all, 0 sunlight. This is called the aphotic zone. Aphotic means no light. It is complete, total darkness. It is darker than any night you have ever known. It is darker than the darkest cave. There is no natural light at all. It is black, pitch black, all the time. Every single moment of every single day is completely dark. How does this affect life? Well, if there is no light, plants cannot grow. Plants need sunlight for a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is how plants make their own food. They use sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to make sugars. These sugars are their food. And plants are the base of almost all food chains on Earth. Without plants, there is no first step in the food chain, no initial food producer. So, in the deep sea, there are no plants, no seaweed, no algae, no tiny plant-like organisms floating around using sunlight. Because there is no sunlight, this means that the main way food is made on Earth simply does not exist in the deep ocean. It is gone. There is no way for plants to grow. This is the biggest problem for food in the deep sea. The biggest problem, because there are no plants, there are no plant-eating animals in the deep sea that eat plants directly from the deep sea floor. There is no green carpet of plant life. There are no fields of grass. This is a very important point. Most food chains start with plants. The deep sea does not have this start. So, where does the food come from? If there are no plants making food from sunlight, where does the energy come from? This is the core question for understanding what deep-sea creatures eat. The answer is surprising. It comes from two main sources. One is a rain of dead things from above. The other is a strange process that uses chemicals. Let us talk about the first and most common food source for the deep sea: marine snow. Marine snow. This sounds like snow falling in the ocean, and in a way, it is. But it is not white snowflakes. It is a slow, continuous shower of tiny, tiny bits of dead plants, dead animals, and waste products that drift down from the surface waters. Think about the surface ocean again. Lots of life there. Tiny plant-like organisms called phytoplankton float in the sunlight. They are like microscopic plants. They use photosynthesis. Tiny animal-like organisms called zooplankton eat the phytoplankton. Small fish eat the zooplankton. Bigger fish eat the small fish. There is a whole bustling world of life near the surface. But things die. Things always die. Phytoplankton die. Zooplankton die. Fish die. Parts of organisms break off. Waste from animals is produced. Fish poop. Bits of scales fall off. Molted skin from crustaceans. All of these tiny, tiny bits. They are organic matter. Organic matter means they contain carbon and nutrients. They contain energy. When these bits die, or are produced, they start to sink. They sink very slowly. Imagine a tiny speck of dust falling through the air. It takes a long time to fall. Now, imagine tiny, tiny bits of dead stuff falling through thick water. It takes an even longer time. It can take days, weeks, or even months for these tiny bits to reach the deep ocean floor. Days, or weeks, or even months. That is a very long journey. As these tiny bits fall, they clump together. They form larger, fluffy particles. These fluffy particles are what we call marine snow. It is a mixture of dead phytoplankton, dead zooplankton, dead fish parts, fecal pellets, poop from animals, and other organic debris. It is a continuous, slow, gentle rain. A very slow, gentle rain. Why is marine snow so important? Because it is the most common food source for the vast majority of creatures living in the deep ocean. It is the food that falls from the world above. It is the food that connects the sunlight world to the dark world. Without marine snow, most of the deep sea would be completely empty of life. It would be a barren wasteland with nothing living there. Marine snow brings the energy down. It brings the carbon down. It brings the nutrients down. But there is a catch, a very big catch. As the marine snow falls, many things happen to it. Some of it gets eaten on the way down by creatures living in the midwater depths. Some of it gets broken down by bacteria. So, by the time it reaches the very deep ocean floor, very little of it is left. Only a tiny fraction. A very, very small amount of the food produced at the surface actually makes it all the way down to the deep seafloor. It is like trying to catch snowflakes in a very, very big forest. Most of them melt or get caught in branches before they hit the ground. Most of the marine snow is used up before it reaches the bottom. So, the deep ocean floor is a place of extreme food scarcity. Scarcity means not much of something. There is very little food. It is like a desert, but not a sand desert. It is a cold, dark water desert. Creatures that live here must be very good at finding the little food that is available. They must be very efficient at using the food they find. They cannot waste energy. They cannot move around much, because moving around takes energy, and energy is very, very hard to come by. Food is very, very scarce, very, very rare. This marine snow is the foundation. It is the base of the food web for the vast, vast majority of the deep ocean. Without marine snow, these creatures would starve. They would simply die. They rely on this slow, constant drizzle of dead things. They rely on it for every single meal. They rely on it for all their energy. So, to summarize marine snow, it is dead stuff, like tiny plants and animals and waste, falling slowly from the surface. It is the main food source, but there is very, very little of it, and it travels a very, very long way down. This makes food very, very scarce in the deep. Now, let us move to the other main source of food in the deep sea. This one is truly amazing. It was discovered much later than marine snow was understood. This source of food does not rely on sunlight at all. It relies on chemicals. This process is called chemosynthesis. Chemosynthesis means making food from chemicals. Chemo means chemical. Synthesis means to make. For a long, long time, scientists thought that all life on Earth relied on the sun, either directly, like plants, or indirectly, like animals eating plants. The idea was that the sun was the ultimate source of energy for all living things. And for most of Earth, this is true. But in the late 1970s, something incredible was discovered. Scientists were exploring the deep ocean floor near volcanic areas. They found strange cracks in the Earth's crust. Hot water was coming out of these cracks. This hot water was full of chemicals. These cracks are called hydrothermal vents. Hydrothermal means hot water. Vents means openings. So, hot water openings, when they first saw these vents, they were shocked. Around these hot water vents, there was an abundance of life. Abundance means a lot, a huge amount of life. Not just tiny, scattered creatures, but dense communities. Clams, mussels, giant tube worms, strange crabs, and other animals. Many, many animals. And they were thriving. They were big. They were healthy. How could this be? How could so much life exist in complete darkness with no marine snow to support it? The answer was chemosynthesis. Scientists discovered tiny, tiny organisms. These organisms were bacteria. These bacteria were not using sunlight to make food. They were using chemicals from the hot water. The hot water coming out of the vents was rich in chemicals like hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide smells like rotten eggs. It is poisonous to most life. But these special bacteria could use it. They could use hydrogen sulfide and other chemicals as an energy source. They could use these chemicals to make organic matter, to make sugars, to make food. Just like plants use sunlight to make food, these bacteria were using chemicals to make food. This was a completely new way for life to start a food chain. It was a groundbreaking discovery. It changed how we think about life on Earth and how we think about life in the universe. So, these chemosynthetic bacteria are the primary producers at hydrothermal vents. They are the plants of the deep sea vents. They form the base of a completely different food web. Instead of sunlight providing energy, chemical reactions provide energy. Let us explain this a bit more simply. Imagine a small factory. A normal factory uses electricity to power its machines and make products. This is like a plant using sunlight. But these bacteria are like a special factory that does not need electricity. It uses a different kind of fuel. It uses chemicals from the earth itself. It takes these chemicals mixes them up, and produces new, usable energy in the form of food. So, at these hydrothermal vents, you have this rich chemical soup coming out of the earth. The bacteria take these chemicals, they break them down, they release energy, and they use that energy to build up organic compounds, to build up food, to build up sugars, and then other creatures eat these bacteria, or they live with these bacteria inside them. A famous example of this is the giant tube worm. These worms are huge. They can be several meters long. They have no mouth. They have no gut. They have no way to eat food in the normal way. How do they survive? They have special organs inside their bodies. These organs are full of chemosynthetic bacteria. Millions and millions of these bacteria live inside the worms. The worms provide the bacteria with the chemicals they need from the vent water, like hydrogen sulfide and oxygen. The bacteria, in turn, produce food for the worms. They make sugars and other organic molecules. The worms then use this food. It is a partnership, a symbiosis. Both the worm and the bacteria benefit. The worm gets food. The bacteria get a safe home and a steady supply of chemicals. This is an incredible adaptation to a harsh environment. Besides hydrothermal vents, there are also cold seeps. Cold seeps are similar but different. Instead of hot water, they release cold water. This cold water is also rich in chemicals. Often, it contains methane. Methane is natural gas, and hydrogen sulfide. Just like at hydrothermal vents, special bacteria at cold seeps can use these chemicals. They use methane or hydrogen sulfide to produce food. They are also chemosynthetic. And around these cold seeps, you also find unique communities of life. Clams, mussels, and other creatures that rely on these chemosynthetic bacteria for food. These are places where life does not care about the sun at all. The sun means nothing to them. So, we have two main foundations for food in the deep sea. The first, and by far the most widespread, is marine snow. This is the constant, slow rain of dead organic matter from the sunlit surface waters. It is scarce, but it is everywhere in the deep ocean. Most deep-sea creatures rely on it. They are detritivores, meaning they eat dead bits, or scavengers, meaning they eat larger dead things. The second foundation is chemosynthesis. This happens only in very specific places where chemicals come out of the earth, like hydrothermal vents and cold seeps. Here, bacteria make food from chemicals. They form the base of a completely different food web. These ecosystems are like oases in the vast, empty, deep sea. An oasis is a fertile spot in a desert. These places are like fertile spots in the deep sea desert. Let us think more about the sheer vastness of the deep ocean. It is the largest living space on Earth, much, much larger than all the land combined. Most of this vast space relies on that tiny, tiny trickle of marine snow. Only small, specific spots have the chemical energy from chemosynthesis. This means that for most of the deep sea, food is incredibly limited. Incredibly limited. Creatures must adapt to this constant food shortage. We must remember the extreme conditions when thinking about food. The pressure means creatures cannot have air pockets. They are squishy. This means they cannot easily chase food with fast, powerful movements. The cold means their metabolism is slow. They grow slowly. They reproduce slowly. They use less energy. This helps them survive on very little food. They do not need as much energy because they are not doing things quickly. They are just surviving, slowly, The darkness means they cannot see their food, or see where to find food, or see predators using light. This is a very important point. This forces them to find food in other ways. We will talk about that later, but for now, just think about how hard it would be to find food in pitch black, crushing cold, with not much energy, moving slowly. It is a very, very hard life. The concept of primary production is key here. Primary production is the very first step in making food for an ecosystem. On land, it is plants. In the shallow ocean, it is phytoplankton. Both use sunlight. They are called primary producers because they produce organic matter from inorganic things. They make food from basic elements using sunlight. In the deep sea, this primary production is mostly happening far away at the surface, and only a tiny fraction of that production falls down as marine snow. That is why it is so scarce. So, the base of the food web for the vast majority of the deep sea is the dead and decaying material that falls from above. It is not made locally. It comes from a different place entirely. This is a very different way of living. Think about a forest on land. The trees are the primary producers. They make food. Animals eat the trees directly, or they eat other animals that ate the trees. The food is made right there. But in the deep sea, the food source is constantly falling from far, far away. It is like living in a town where all your food has to be dropped from airplanes flying high above, and only a tiny bit of it actually lands where you can reach it. And it is mostly crumbs, tiny crumbs. The chemicals at vents and seeps allow for a local primary production. The bacteria make food right there. So, the communities around vents and seeps are much denser. They are teeming with life because the food is being made right there. It is not falling from far away. It is being made on the spot. This is why these places are so special. They are like busy, bustling cities in an otherwise silent, empty desert. So, to recap these fundamental points again, the deep sea is a world of extreme pressure, freezing cold, and complete darkness. These conditions make it incredibly difficult for life. The biggest challenge is food. Most food on Earth comes from sunlight powering plants, but in the deep sea, there is no sunlight for plants. So, most of the deep sea relies on marine snow, which is tiny bits of dead plants, animals, and waste falling slowly from the surface. There is very little of this marine snow. By the time it gets to the bottom, it is a very, very scarce food source in very specific places, like hydrothermal vents and cold seeps. Life uses a different system. Bacteria make food from chemicals coming out of the earth. This is called chemosynthesis. These places have lots of life because the food is made right there. But these places are rare. Most of the deep ocean is a food desert, and this food desert is supported by the falling remnants of life from above. These are the two very different foundations for how deep sea creatures get their very first energy to survive. And these foundations shape everything about them. They shape how they move. They shape how they eat. They shape how they live. And they shape the strange and wonderful creatures that we will discuss more in the next parts of this lecture. The entire deep sea world is built upon these two very different, very fundamental ways of getting food. One is a trickle from the sunlit world. The other is a burst from the Earth's core. Both are amazing. Both are essential. And both are very, very unique to this cold, dark, high-pressure world. Part 2. The world of deep sea detritivores, and scavengers. In the last part, we learned about the extreme world of the deep sea. We talked about the crushing pressure, the freezing cold, and the total darkness. We also talked about the two main ways that food gets to the deep sea. The first way, and the most common way, is marine snow. This is the constant, slow fall of dead bits from the surface. The second way, which is very special and happens in only a few spots, is chemosynthesis, where bacteria make food from chemicals. Now, we will focus on the vast majority of deep-sea creatures. These are the ones that rely on marine snow. They are called detritivores, or scavengers. Detritivores eat very small pieces of dead organic matter. Scavengers eat larger dead organisms. These animals are the cleanup crew of the deep ocean. They make sure that no food, no energy, no carbon goes to waste. They are masters of using what little falls to them. They are incredibly efficient. Let us talk more about marine snow. We know it is a slow rain of dead stuff. But what exactly is in marine snow? What does it look like up close? Imagine very tiny flakes. Not white, like snow from the sky. These flakes are often brown or gray. They are fluffy, they are sticky, and they are made of many different things. First, a big part of marine snow comes from dead phytoplankton. Phytoplankton are very tiny plant-like organisms. They float near the surface of the ocean, where there is sunlight. They are so small, you cannot see them without a microscope. But there are billions and billions of them. They are the primary producers in the sunlit ocean. They make food from sunlight. When these tiny phytoplankton die, their tiny bodies start to sink. They are very small, so they sink very slowly. Next, there are dead zooplankton. Zooplankton are very tiny, animal-like organisms. They are also very small, and you need a microscope to see most of them. They live near the surface too. What do zooplankton eat? They eat phytoplankton. So, they are the first animals in the surface food chain. When these tiny zooplankton die, their tiny bodies also start to sink. Just like the phytoplankton, they sink very slowly through the water. Then, there are fecal pellets. This is a polite way to say animal poop. Many animals in the ocean, from tiny zooplankton to large fish, produce waste. This waste is often packaged into small, neat little balls or pellets. These fecal pellets are full of undigested food and other organic matter. They are like little packages of food, and because they are in a pellet form, they sink faster than loose bits. So, fecal pellets are a very important part of marine snow. They deliver food to the deep sea in a somewhat faster way. Think of them as small, dense food drops. They are full of energy that can be used by other creatures. These pellets are produced constantly by all the animals living in the layers above. Every time an animal eats and digests, it produces waste. This waste, if it is in pellet form, can make a journey downwards. Also, in marine snow are discarded parts of animals. Many sea creatures have hard outer shells or skeletons. When they grow, they shed these outer layers. For example, crustaceans like shrimp and crabs have hard outer shells. As they grow bigger, they shed their old, smaller shell. This old shell then sinks. It is organic matter. It contains carbon. It contains energy. It is food for something. Other examples include scales from fish that fall off, or mucus that some animals produce. All of these bits contribute to the rain of marine snow. They are like tiny pieces of garbage. But in the deep sea, they are not garbage. They are precious food. And finally, marine snow can include very small pieces of larger dead organisms. When a fish dies near the surface, its body might break down into very small pieces. A dead jellyfish might slowly break apart as it sinks. These tiny pieces then become part of the marine snow. They are very small bits of flesh, muscle, or other soft tissues. They are also full of energy. So, marine snow is a mix of all these things: dead microscopic plants, dead microscopic animals, animal poop, shed body parts, and tiny fragments of larger dead creatures. They all clump together as they fall. They stick together. They form these fluffy, irregular particles. Imagine very fine dust, but wet and clumpy. That is what marine snow looks like. The journey of marine snow from the surface to the deep sea floor is a very long one. It is a very, very slow journey. It can take days to reach depths of a few hundred meters. It can take weeks to reach depths of a few thousand meters. And for the very deepest parts of the ocean, it can take months. Think about how far that is, and how slowly it moves, a tiny speck falling for months. As marine snow falls, many things happen to it. First, some of it gets eaten by creatures living in the middle layers of the ocean. These creatures are called midwater organisms. They live between the surface and the bottom. They are also hungry, so they catch some of the falling marine snow. They eat it. This means less food makes it all the way to the bottom. Second, as the marine snow falls, bacteria and other tiny microbes start to break it down. These microbes are everywhere in the water. They are like tiny recyclers. They eat the organic matter in the marine snow. They use the energy. They break it down into simpler chemicals. This process is called decomposition. When something decomposes, it breaks apart. This also means that less food, less energy, reaches the deep sea floor. The bacteria are very busy working on the marine snow as it falls. They are like tiny, tiny mouths eating it up. So, by the time the marine snow reaches the very bottom, after days or weeks or months of falling, only a very, very small fraction of the original food energy is left. It is like taking a giant piece of cake and letting birds peck at it, and letting worms eat at it, and letting it slowly melt as it travels. By the time it reaches you, it is just a tiny, tiny crumb. A very, very small crumb. This extreme scarcity of food is the biggest challenge for life in the deep sea. There is just not much to eat. So, deep sea creatures have to be incredibly good at finding what little food is there. And they have to be incredibly good at using every bit of energy from that food. They cannot waste anything. Let us now talk about the animals that eat this marine snow. They are mostly detritivores and scavengers. Detritivores are animals that eat detritus. Detritus is a fancy word for dead organic matter. It is all the little bits and pieces of dead stuff. Detritivores feed on these tiny particles. They are like vacuum cleaners of the deep sea. They suck up the mud and dirt from the seafloor, or they filter the water to catch the falling particles. Their diet is mostly dead, decaying material. Scavengers are animals that eat larger, dead things. When a bigger animal dies, like a fish or a squid, and its whole body or a large part of it sinks, a scavenger might come and eat it. Scavengers are like the cleanup crew for bigger dead bodies. They are often quick to find these rare, large food falls. They will eat as much as they can, as fast as they can, because these large food sources do not last forever. Other animals will come, and the body will break down, Both detritivores and scavengers are very important for the deep sea ecosystem. They recycle nutrients. They make sure that energy from the surface is brought down and used again in the deep. They prevent the bottom of the ocean from being covered in a thick layer of unused dead material. They keep the deep sea floor clean, in a way. Let us start by looking at the detritivores. These are the animals that eat the tiny bits of marine snow. There are two main ways they do this: deposit feeding and suspension feeding. Deposit feeders eat the sediment on the seafloor. The marine snow falls all the way down and settles on the bottom. It mixes with the mud, the clay, the sand, and the fine particles that make up the deep sea floor. So, the food is in the dirt. These animals eat the dirt, digest the organic bits from it, and then push out the indigestible parts. They are like living processing plants for deep sea mud. A very, very common and important group of deposit feeders are sea cucumbers. Sea cucumbers are related to starfish and sea urchins. They are echinoderms, but they look very different. They are usually soft-bodied. They are often shaped like a cucumber, which is how they got their name. Many sea cucumbers live on the deep sea floor. They can be very abundant. Abundant means there are many of them. In some parts of the deep sea, if you were to look down, you would see thousands and thousands of sea cucumbers covering the bottom. How do sea cucumbers eat? Most deep sea cucumbers are deposit feeders. They use special tentacles around their mouths. Imagine short, sticky arms around a central opening. These tentacles are often branched, like tiny trees or bushes. They are designed to pick up particles. A sea cucumber will slowly move across the sea floor. As it moves, it sweeps its sticky tentacles over the surface of the mud. It picks up the top layer of sediment. This top layer is where the marine snow has settled. The tentacles are sticky, so the tiny bits of marine snow and mud stick to them. The sea cucumber then puts these tentacles one by one into its mouth. It literally licks the food off its tentacles. It pulls the food-covered tentacle into its mouth, scrapes off the food, and then extends the tentacle out again to collect more. It does this over and over again. It is a slow, methodical process. Think about it. The food in the mud is not very nutritious. It is mostly dirt. So, a sea cucumber has to eat a lot of mud to get enough food. They process huge amounts of sediment. Imagine eating handfuls of dirt to get a tiny bit of energy. That is what a sea cucumber does all day, every day. Their digestive systems are very long and simple. They are designed to process large volumes of low-quality food. The food passes through their gut. The useful organic bits are taken out, and the clean mud is expelled as waste. You can sometimes see trails of clean mud behind a sea cucumber, showing where it has been feeding. They are literally cleaning the seafloor. There are many, many different types of deep sea cucumbers. Some are very small, some are quite large, some are very simple, some are quite fancy. For example, some deep sea cucumbers are called sea pigs. Their scientific name is Scotoplanes globosa. They are a type of sea cucumber that has leg-like structures. These are not true legs, but modified tube feet. They are very strange looking. They use these fleshy, leg-like structures to slowly walk along the seafloor. And just like other sea cucumbers, they use their tentacles to scoop up the sediment and eat the marine snow within it. They are very plump and slow. They are very good at their job of eating the deep sea mud. Their soft bodies are well suited for the crushing pressure. Their slow metabolism means they do not need much food. They are perfectly adapted to their environment and their food source. Other deposit feeders include certain types of brittle stars. Brittle stars are also echinoderms, related to starfish. They have long, thin, flexible arms. Some brittle stars will lie on the seafloor and use their arms to sweep the surface of the mud. They gather the marine snow particles that have settled. They then bring these particles to their mouths, which are located on the underside of their central body. Their arms are very good at sensing and collecting these tiny food bits. They are very delicate, but also very good at finding food in the dark. They also move very slowly. Speed is not a good strategy when food is scarce. Slow and steady wins the race for survival in the deep sea. Deep sea worms are another very important group of deposit feeders. There are many different kinds of worms in the deep sea. Some burrow into the sediment. They eat the mud as they tunnel through it. They digest the organic matter and then pass the cleaned mud out behind them. These worms are often quite small, but there are so many of them that they play a huge role in processing the deep sea sediments. Imagine miles and miles of ocean floor, and under the surface, countless tiny worms working to eat and process the mud. Other types of deep sea worms, especially polycate worms, have specialized feeding structures. Some have long, feathery tentacles that they extend out onto the sediment surface. These tentacles are covered in tiny hairs or sticky mucus. They trap marine snow particles. The worm then pulls these tentacles back into its mouth to clean off the food. It is like a very delicate broom or a sticky net that sweeps the seafloor for food. Some worms even build tubes in the sediment and extend their tentacles out from the tube, reaching for food particles. They stay in one spot and let the food come to them, or they reach out to get it. This saves energy. The adaptations of deposit feeders are very clear. They have simple, often large mouths, not for biting or tearing, but for scooping or sucking in large amounts of sediment. Their digestive systems are long and designed to extract every last bit of energy from very poor quality food. They often have very slow metabolisms. This means they use very little energy to stay alive. They do not move fast. They do not grow fast. They do not reproduce fast. Everything is slow. This helps them survive in a place where food is extremely rare. They are built for efficiency and endurance, not for speed or power. They are the ultimate slow-motion eaters. Now, let us talk about suspension feeders. These animals do not eat the mud from the bottom. Instead, they filter the water itself. They catch the marine snow particles as they are still falling through the water. They are like living nets or sieves. They filter the tiny bits directly from the water column before the marine snow even has a chance to settle on the seafloor. One of the most ancient and simple groups of suspension feeders are sponges. Deep sea sponges are very common. They come in many shapes and sizes. Some look like vases, some like tubes, some like fans, some like large, soft blobs. Sponges are very simple animals. They do not have organs like brains or hearts, but they are very, very good at filtering water. How do sponges eat? A sponge's body is full of pores, which are tiny holes. Water flows into these pores. Inside the sponge, there are special cells called choanocytes, or collar cells. These cells have a long, whip-like tail called a flagellum. The flagellum beats back and forth, creating a current of water. This current draws water into the sponge. The collar part of the cell is like a tiny net. As the water passes through, the collar cells capture the tiny marine snow particles. The particles stick to the collar. The sponge then digests these captured particles. The filtered water then leaves the sponge through a larger opening called an osculum. It is a continuous, slow pump. A sponge can filter huge amounts of water relative to its size. They are very efficient. They sit there, rooted to the seafloor, and simply filter the constant, slow rain of marine snow. They wait for the food to come to them. They use very little energy to do this. They are like living water purifiers that also get to eat what they purify. They are very, very old forms of life, and their simple, efficient feeding method has allowed them to survive in the deep sea for millions of years. Another important group of deep-sea suspension feeders are corals, but not the colorful, reef-building corals you see in shallow, sunny waters. Those corals need sunlight to grow because they have tiny algae living inside them that use photosynthesis. Deep-sea corals are different. They do not have these algae. They are pure animals. They do not need sunlight. They get all their food by filtering the water. Deep-sea corals can form large, intricate structures, like vast underwater forests or gardens. They can also be solitary, single polyps. A coral is made of many tiny, individual animals called polyps. Each polyp is like a tiny sac with a mouth surrounded by tentacles. These tentacles are covered in stinging cells called nematocysts, which they use to capture small particles or tiny organisms passing by. But mostly, they use their tentacles to catch marine snow. They extend their tentacles into the water column. As the marine snow drifts by, it gets caught on the sticky, sometimes stinging tentacles. The polyp then pulls the tentacles inward, bringing the food to its mouth. They are like living flypaper for marine snow. They are stationary. They wait. They filter. They are very efficient. They are important because they provide homes and shelter for many other deep-sea creatures, just like shallow water reefs do. These deep-sea coral habitats can be very diverse, supporting many different kinds of life, all ultimately relying on the rain of marine snow. Crinoidea, which include sea lilies and feather stars, are also important suspension feeders. Sea lilies look like plants, with a long stalk that anchors them to the seafloor. At the top of the stalk, they have a cup-shaped body and many feathery arms that branch out. These arms are covered in tiny, sticky tube feet. They extend their arms into the water current, forming a net-like structure. As marine snow particles drift past, they get caught on the sticky tube feet. The sea lily then uses cilia, tiny hair-like structures, to move the food particles down grooves on its arms towards its mouth. Feather stars are similar, but do not have a stalk. They can crawl or swim slowly, but they often perch on rocks or other structures to filter feed. They also use their feathery arms to capture marine snow. They are very graceful in the water, opening their arms like a beautiful fan. But their main goal is simply to catch the tiny, falling food bits. Some deep-sea anemones are also suspension feeders, while some anemones are predators, using their stinging tentacles to catch larger prey. Many deep-sea species are more generalist feeders. They extend their many tentacles into the water. The tentacles capture any drifting particles of marine snow or very small organisms that happen to bump into them. The tentacles bring the captured food to the central mouth. They are like a living flower that catches food from the water. They are often rooted to the seafloor or attached to rocks. They stay in one place and let the food come to them. Even some types of deep-sea barnacles are suspension feeders. Unlike the barnacles you might see on rocks at the beach, some deep-sea barnacles live on stalks and are quite large. They have feathery appendages called cirri. They extend these cirri into the water and sweep them through, filtering out the marine snow. They are like tiny, living fishing nets. They are stuck in one place, so they must be very good at catching anything that drifts by. Other suspension feeders include certain types of bivalves, like clams and mussels, that live on the seafloor but filter water instead of eating sediment. They draw water into their shells through an inlet siphon and then filter out food particles using their gills. The filtered water leaves through an outlet siphon. Some tunicates, also called sea squirts, are also common suspension feeders. They are bag-like animals that pump water through their bodies, filtering out food particles. Some deep-sea siphonophores, which are colonies of tiny animals, can have very long trailing tentacles that act as huge living nets to capture marine snow and other small organisms in the water column. They are like giant, delicate fishing lines, just waiting for food to drift into them. All suspension feeders share important adaptations. They are often stationary or slow-moving. They do not chase food. They let the food come to them. This saves enormous amounts of energy. They often have very large surface areas for filtering, like the many arms of a sea lily or the pores of a sponge. They have specialized structures, like cilia or sticky mucus, to capture the tiny particles effectively. And like deposit feeders, they have slow metabolisms. They are built for patience and efficiency, not for speed. They are the patient waiting eaters of the deep. Now, let us talk about the role of microbes in this system. Microbes are very, very tiny living things. They include bacteria and archaea. They are everywhere in the ocean. They are in the water. They are in the marine snow. They are in the mud. They are inside the guts of many animals, and they play an incredibly important role in the food web. As marine snow falls, microbes are constantly working on it. They are breaking it down. They are decomposing it. They are eating the organic matter. They are turning complex organic molecules into simpler, inorganic nutrients. This process is essential for recycling. If microbes did not do this, all the nutrients would be locked up in dead bodies and would not be available for new life. They are the ultimate recyclers. They break down everything. When marine snow finally settles on the seafloor, the microbes continue their work. They are extremely abundant in the deep sea sediments. They form a kind of living microbial mat on the surface of the mud, or they live throughout the mud. These microbes are also a food source themselves. Some detritivores do not just eat the dead organic matter in the marine snow, they also eat the microbes that are living on that marine snow. So the microbes are both decomposers and food for other organisms. They are like tiny, but very numerous food packages. Many detritivores also have special microbes living inside their guts. These are called gut microbes or gut bacteria. Just like humans have bacteria in their intestines that help digest food, many deep-sea detritivores rely on their internal microbes. The food they eat, the marine snow, is often very hard to digest. It is low in nutrients and high in resistant materials. The gut bacteria help them break down this tough food. They make it easier for the detritivore to extract the small amount of energy that is available. It is another example of a partnership, a symbiosis. The animal provides a home for the bacteria, and the bacteria help the animal get food. This is an extra layer of efficiency in a world where every calorie counts. Let us think about the complete journey of a single carbon atom that was once part of a tiny phytoplankton near the surface. It used sunlight to make itself. Then it died. It became part of a marine snowflake. It started to fall. On its way down, it might have been eaten by a copod, a small zooplankton. The copod digested it and released it as part of a fecal pellet. That fecal pellet continued to fall. It might have been partly broken down by bacteria in the midwater. Finally, it settled on the deep sea floor. Perhaps at 4,000 meters deep, a sea cucumber comes along. It scoops up the sediment with its sticky tentacles. It brings the sediment to its mouth. The carbon atom, now part of a tiny organic particle, enters the sea cucumber's gut. Inside the gut, special bacteria help the sea cucumber break it down. The sea cucumber absorbs the energy from that carbon atom to live, to move slowly, to grow very, very slowly. It has taken months for that carbon atom to travel from the sunlight to the ultimate darkness, providing energy along the way, but losing most of its original energy during the long fall. This journey shows how incredibly connected the surface ocean is to the deep ocean. Through this continuous, but very thin, rain of food, the creatures that live their lives eating marine snow are truly incredible. They have adapted to the most challenging food situation on Earth. They are not fast, they are not powerful, they are not colorful, but they are resilient. They are efficient, they are patient. They are the bedrock of life for the vast majority of the deep sea. They demonstrate that life can find a way to survive, even thrive, in the most unlikely and extreme conditions. By using every last scrap of available energy, their existence shows us the fundamental importance of dead things, of waste, of recycling in the grand scheme of ocean life. They are the ultimate testament to endurance in a food-poor world. In summary, for this part, the world of deep-sea detritivores and scavengers is built entirely around the scarcity of food, mainly marine snow. Marine snow is a mix of dead plankton, fecal pellets, shed body parts, and tiny pieces of larger dead animals, all falling very slowly from the sunlit surface. Most of this food is consumed or broken down before it reaches the deep sea floor, making food incredibly scarce. Deep sea creatures have developed two main strategies to eat this food: deposit feeding, where they eat the marine snow mixed into the sediment, like sea cucumbers and many worms, and suspension feeding, where they filter marine snow directly from the water, like sponges, deep-sea corals, and sea lilies. All these animals are adapted to a slow life, with slow metabolisms and efficient ways of gathering and digesting low-quality food. Microbes play a crucial role in breaking down marine snow and also serving as a food source themselves. This entire system highlights the extreme efficiency needed for life to survive in the largest, darkest, and hungriest part of our planet. These detritivores and scavengers form the base of the food web for the vast majority of the deep ocean, patiently waiting and slowly consuming the constant rain of dead particles. They are not flashy, but they are essential. They are the quiet, persistent workers of the deep. Their lives are slow, measured, and entirely dependent on this constant, gentle but very sparse food supply from the world above. They teach us about patience and resourcefulness. They are the core of what deep-sea creatures eat for most of the deep ocean. Now we will move on to creatures that hunt other creatures in this dark, cold, and empty world. How do predators find and catch prey when there is no light and very little to eat? That is the next big question we will try to answer. Part 3. Predation and hunter strategies in the dark. In the last part, we talked about detritivores and scavengers. These are the creatures that eat the dead stuff that falls from above. They eat marine snow or bigger dead animals. They are the cleanup crew. They are very important. But the deep sea is not just full of creatures that wait for food to fall to them. There are also hunters. There are predators. Predators are animals that hunt and kill other animals for food. They are hunters. Hunting in the deep sea is very, very hard. It is much harder than hunting on land or in the shallow ocean. Why? Because of the extreme conditions we talked about. No light, freezing cold, crushing pressure, and very, very little food. Prey animals are very spread out. They are not everywhere. They are rare. So, a predator has to be extremely good at finding prey. It has to be very good at catching prey. And it has to do all of this in complete darkness using very little energy. Imagine trying to find something to eat in a huge, dark room. The room is freezing cold, and there is only one tiny piece of food hidden somewhere in the whole room, and you cannot see anything. How would you find it? How would you catch it? This is the challenge for deep-sea predators. Because of these challenges, deep-sea predators have developed amazing and strange ways to hunt. They use senses that we humans do not use much, or they use them in extreme ways. They have special body parts. They have very clever tricks. Let us talk about how deep-sea predators find their prey. Since there is no sunlight, they cannot use their eyes to see light like we do. But many deep-sea creatures still have eyes. Why? Because they can see light that other deep-sea creatures make. This light is called bioluminescence. Bioluminescence is light that living things make. Bio means living. Lumen means light. So, living light. It is like a firefly on land, but in the ocean. Many deep-sea animals can make their own light. They do this using special chemicals inside their bodies. Or sometimes, they have special bacteria living inside them that make the light. It is a chemical reaction that makes light. It does not make heat. It is cold light. Bioluminescence is one of the most important things in the deep ocean. It is the only light down there. So, deep-sea predators often use bioluminescence in different ways to find and catch prey. One very common way predators use bioluminescence is as a lure. A lure is something that attracts something else. Think of a fishing lure. It attracts fish. Deep-sea predators use light lures to attract prey. The most famous example of this is the anglerfish. The anglerfish is perhaps the most well-known deep-sea predator. It is very strange looking. It has a big head and a very large mouth, and on its head, it has a long spine. At the end of this spine, there is a glowing blob. This glowing blob is a lure. It is like a tiny fishing rod with a light on the end. How does it work? The anglerfish sits very still in the dark water. It does not move much. Moving takes energy. Remember, energy is very scarce. So, it waits. It wiggles its glowing lure. The light is made by special bacteria living inside the lure. Or sometimes, the anglerfish, makes the light itself. The light shines in the total darkness. What happens? Other small fish, small shrimp, or other deep-sea creatures see this light. They are curious, or they think it is food. They swim towards the light. They get closer and closer. They get very close. And then, snap, the anglerfish opens its giant mouth very, very fast. It sucks in the prey. The prey has no chance to escape. It is too fast. It is too sudden. The anglerfish got its meal without moving much. This is a very energy-efficient way to hunt. It is an ambush strategy. Ambush means waiting hidden and then attacking suddenly. There are many different types of anglerfish. Some have very long lures. Some have lures that flash. Some have lures that look like other animals. All of them use this glowing bait to bring food right to their mouths. They are masters of deception in the dark. They use light to attract prey that cannot see them. Their bodies are often soft and squishy, which helps them with pressure. They do not have strong muscles because they do not chase prey. They just sit and wait. Their main body part for hunting is that amazing lure and their huge, fast mouth. Other deep-sea fish also use bioluminescence as a lure. For example, some dragonfish have a long barbel under their chin. A barbel is a fleshy growth. At the end of this barbel, there is a glowing light. Just like the anglerfish, the dragonfish dangles this light. Small prey are attracted to it. When they get close enough, the dragonfish strikes. Dragonfish also have very long, sharp teeth. These teeth are like daggers. They are very good at grabbing and holding onto slippery prey in the dark. Once they catch something, those teeth make sure it does not get away. Bioluminescence is also used for other purposes that help with hunting. Some animals use it to hide. This is called counter-illumination. Imagine you are a deep-sea fish. There might be some light from above. This light is very, very dim. It is not sunlight. It is bioluminescence from other creatures above you. If you are a darker shape, a predator below you, looking up, might see your silhouette, your shadow. But some deep-sea fish have light organs on their bellies. They produce light that matches the dim light coming from above. This makes their shadow disappear. They blend in with the background light. It is like being invisible from below. This helps them hide from predators, but it also helps them hide from their prey. If a predator cannot be seen, it is easier to ambush its prey. It is very clever camouflage using light. Some deep-sea animals use bioluminescence as a burglar alarm. Imagine a small shrimp is being attacked by a fish. The shrimp might release a cloud of glowing fluid. This bright flash of light does not hurt the fish, but it attracts other, bigger predators. A bigger predator sees the light and swims towards it. The bigger predator might then eat the fish that was attacking the shrimp. So, the shrimp gets away. It is like calling for help by shining a bright light. This is a very strange way to use light for survival, and it indirectly helps the food web by making sure some animals survive longer. Bioluminescence can also be used as a flashlight. Some fish have bright light organs near their eyes. They can flash this light on and off. They might use it to briefly light up a small area to spot prey, or to blind or startle a predator while they escape. For example, some deep-sea squids can squirt a cloud of glowing ink. This glowing ink confuses predators and gives the squid a chance to escape. It is like a smoke screen, but with light. This helps them survive, which means they can live to hunt another day. So, bioluminescence is hugely important for finding food and avoiding becoming food in the deep sea. It is the primary visual sense down there. Eyes in the deep sea are mostly for seeing this bioluminescence. Many deep sea fish have very large eyes. These big eyes are designed to gather as much faint light as possible. Some have tubular eyes, which are like binoculars that point straight up to catch any light from above. Some have a special reflective layer behind their retina, which helps them see faint light even better. This layer reflects the light back through the light-sensing cells, giving them a second chance to catch the photons. This makes their eyes very sensitive. Even though it is mostly dark, these highly sensitive eyes allow them to detect the tiny flashes or glows of bioluminescence from other creatures. So, while they do not see the world as we do, they can still navigate and hunt using the light made by other animals. Besides bioluminescence, deep-sea predators use other senses that are very important. One very strong sense is chemoreception. This is like smelling or tasting. Water carries chemicals. Animals can detect these chemicals. Think about a shark in the shallow ocean. It can smell blood in the water from far away. Deep-sea predators do the same thing. They use their sense of smell to find food. Many deep-sea fish have very large nostrils. These are not for breathing, but for smelling. They can detect tiny amounts of chemicals released by other animals. For example, when a dead animal sinks, it releases chemicals. Scavengers like hagfish or deep-sea sharks can smell these chemicals from a long distance. They follow the chemical trail. Just like a dog follows a scent trail on land, they swim towards the strongest smell, which leads them to the food. This is very important for scavengers, finding large, rare food falls. But predators also use this. They can smell the presence of potential prey, or they can smell a wounded animal, which is easier to catch. Some deep-sea fish have special organs, like barbels or whisker-like structures, that are covered in chemoreceptors. They drag these along the seafloor or through the water to pick up chemical signals. They are like living chemical detectors. They constantly sample the water for any hint of food. This is a very effective way to find spread out prey in the dark. Another important sense is mechanoreception. This is the sense of feeling movement or vibrations in the water. Water is very good at carrying vibrations. Think about how sound travels through water. It travels very well. Many deep-sea fish have a special system called the lateral line system. The lateral line is a line of special cells along the side of their body. These cells can detect tiny changes in water pressure or movement. If another animal swims by, it creates small movements or pressure waves in the water. The lateral line system can pick up these tiny signals. This is very useful in the dark. Even if a predator cannot see its prey, it can feel it. If a small fish swims close, the predator can feel the ripples in the water. This helps them pinpoint the exact location of the prey. They can then quickly strike. It is like having a constant sonar system working around them. Some deep-sea squids and octopuses also have very sensitive cells on their skin and tentacles that can detect vibrations. This helps them locate prey in the pitch black. They can feel the tiny shifts in water pressure created by a passing meal. So, deep-sea predators rely on a combination of senses: bioluminescence for light signals, chemoreception for chemical smells, and mechanoreception for feeling movements. They use all these senses together to build a picture of their dark world and to find their next meal. Now let us talk about hunting strategies themselves. How do these animals actually catch their prey? The most common hunting strategy in the deep sea is the ambush strategy. We mentioned it with the anglerfish. This strategy is perfect for a food-scarce environment. Why? Because it saves energy. Instead of actively swimming around and searching for food, which uses a lot of energy, the ambush predator waits. It sits still. It hides. It waits for the prey to come to it. And when prey is rare, waiting is often the best option. Ambush predators often have bodies that are designed for waiting. They might be soft-bodied and not very muscular because they do not need to be fast swimmers for long periods. They often have very large mouths. When they do strike, it is usually a very quick, sudden movement. The anglerfish is the prime example of an ambush predator. It sits there, wiggles its light, and snaps up anything that gets too close. It is a very simple but effective strategy. It is not pretty, but it works. Another amazing ambush predator is the gulper eel. The gulper eel is one of the strangest looking deep-sea fish. It has a very, very small body, but it has an enormous mouth. Its mouth is so big, it looks like a giant, gaping sack. Its jaws are very loosely connected. This means it can open its mouth incredibly wide. It can swallow prey that is much, much larger than its own body. Much, much larger. Imagine a snake that can swallow an animal 5 times bigger than its head. That is what a gulper eel can do. The gulper eel also sits and waits in the midwater depths. It just floats there, like a living net. Its mouth is often open. When a small fish or a shrimp swims into its mouth, the gulper eel expands its huge jaws and swallows the prey whole. It does not need to chase. It does not need to chew. It just engulfs. This is a very important adaptation for a food-scarce environment. When you find food, you need to be able to eat it all. Even if it is a big meal, you do not know when your next meal will come. So, being able to swallow a very big meal means you can store energy for a long time. The gulper eel is a master of consuming anything that happens to drift into its giant trap. Its stomach can also stretch to hold very large meals. This is another adaptation for times of feast or famine. The black swallower, also known as Chiasmodon niger, is another example of a fish with an incredibly expandable stomach. This fish is not very big, usually about 25 centimeters long, but it has a stomach that can stretch so much that it can swallow fish twice its length and 10 times its weight. It is truly remarkable. When it swallows a very large fish, its stomach can make its entire body look like a balloon with a tail. It might even be too heavy to swim. It might just float there while it slowly digests its giant meal. This is an extreme example of how deep-sea predators are adapted to take advantage of any food they find, no matter how big. This is a rare event, finding a big meal. So, when it happens, they are built to maximize it. Other ambush predators include some types of deep-sea octopuses and squids. Some of these animals can hide in the soft sediment. They bury themselves, leaving only their eyes or a few tentacles showing. When a small fish or crustacean comes close, they quickly burst out and grab it. Their soft bodies and ability to change color or texture help them blend in perfectly with the seafloor. While ambush hunting is common, some deep-sea predators do engage in more active pursuit, but it is rare and usually for very powerful hunters. For example, some types of deep-sea squids, like the colossal squid or giant squid, are active predators. They are at the very top of the deep-sea food chain. They are very large, very strong, and have huge eyes. They use their enormous eyes to detect faint bioluminescence from their prey, such as large fish or other squid. Once they spot prey, they use their powerful tentacles and arms, covered in suckers and sometimes hooks, to grab and hold on. They have sharp beaks, like a parrot's beak, which they use to tear apart their prey. These squids are fast for their environment, but still probably not as fast as a tuna in the surface waters. They are designed for power and strength in a cold, dark world. They are the true monsters of the deep, preying on other large animals. Viperfish and dragonfish, which we mentioned using lures, also have very specialized mouths for active hunting once they get close to prey. Their mouths are enormous. They have very long, pointed, needle-sharp teeth that stick out even when their mouths are closed. These teeth are like cages. Once prey is inside their mouth, it cannot get out. They do not chew. They just hold the prey with these teeth and then swallow it whole. These fish often have black bodies, which helps them hide in the darkness. They're like living shadows, with glowing lures and dagger-filled mouths. They can swim in bursts to grab prey once it is lured close. Let us go into more detail on the body adaptations for these predators. First, the large mouths and expandable stomachs. This is a theme we see over and over. When food is rare, you cannot be picky. And when you find food, you must eat as much as you can. A large mouth allows you to catch and swallow a wide range of prey sizes. An expandable stomach allows you to hold a huge meal, which can sustain you for a very long time until your next rare encounter with food. This adaptation is crucial for surviving long periods without eating. It is like having a giant food storage unit inside you. Second, the long, sharp teeth. In the dark, precision is hard. You cannot aim perfectly. So, deep-sea predators often have very long, pointed teeth that are not necessarily for chewing, but for grasping and holding. These teeth are like spikes that impale the prey. Once the prey is caught, it cannot slip away in the darkness. The teeth prevent escape. Think of the viperfish, whose teeth are so long they cannot fully close their mouth. These teeth stick out like a permanent trap. Third, the general body structure. Many deep-sea fish have soft bodies and weak muscles. They do not need strong muscles for fast swimming. They are not chasing prey for long distances. This saves energy. Strong muscles require a lot of energy to build and maintain. So, having soft, jelly-like bodies and less muscle is an energy-saving strategy. Their bones are also often less dense and lighter. This also helps with buoyancy and saving energy. Many deep-sea predators are also dark in color, often black or dark red. This is excellent camouflage in the deep ocean. Black is invisible in complete darkness. Red light is absorbed very quickly by water, so red animals appear black in the deep sea because there is no red light to reflect. So, a red fish is just as invisible as a black fish. Being invisible is a key part of ambush hunting. If the prey cannot see you, you have the element of surprise. Let us consider some more specific examples of predators and their hunting tactics. The sarcastic fringehead, while more of a shallow water fish, demonstrates the ambush technique well. It hides in a shell or tube, waiting. When a fish swims too close, it darts out and engulfs the prey with its huge, gaping mouth. The deep-sea equivalent of this idea is the anglerfish. It is the epitome of the ambush predator. It stays put, saves energy, and lets the food come to it. The anglerfish's lure is not just a light bulb. It can be complex, sometimes even looking like a small worm or another organism. Some lures can even change color or flash in patterns. These complex lures are designed to fool the prey into thinking it is an easy meal or something safe to explore. Then there are the fangtooth fish. They are small, but they have the largest teeth relative to body size of any fish. Their teeth are like very long, thin needles. They are very, very sharp. They use these teeth to grasp and hold prey. They are also active predators that probably ambush, but also might chase for short bursts. Their name, fangtooth, tells you everything you need to know about their main weapon. Some deep-sea sharks, like the frilled shark, are also interesting predators. They have very long, eel-like bodies. They have many rows of sharp, backward-pointing teeth. They are thought to be ambush predators. They might swim slowly, or just wait, then suddenly strike to catch squid or other fish. Their teeth are designed to hold on to slippery prey. They are like living, moving traps. The cookie-cutter shark is a very unique deep-sea predator. It does not eat whole fish. Instead, it bites out perfect, cookie-shaped chunks of flesh from much larger animals. It has a special mouth with a ring of very sharp, triangular teeth. It attaches itself to a larger animal, like a whale, a large fish, or a seal. It then twists its body, using its teeth to scoop out a round piece of flesh. Then it lets go and swims away. This is a very strange, predatory strategy, almost like a parasite, but also a predator. It does not kill its prey, but it gets a meal from it. It is a very clever way to get food in a food-scarce environment by taking small parts of very large animals that are themselves rare. It is important to remember that for most of these predators, their main diet consists of other deep-sea creatures. They eat the fish, shrimp, and crustaceans that also live in the deep. And what do those animals eat? Often, they are the ones eating marine snow or other detritus, or they are smaller predators eating even smaller animals. So, the energy from marine snow, which starts at the surface, eventually makes its way up the food chain to these predators. Let us think about the food web connection. At the very bottom, we have the detritivores and scavengers, like sea cucumbers, sponges, some worms, hagfish, that eat the marine snow and dead animals. These are the primary consumers of the deep-sea food web, taking energy from the dead bits that fall. Then we have small predators that eat these detritivores, or eat very small mid-water organisms. For example, a small deep-sea shrimp might eat tiny bits of marine snow, but it might also be caught by a small deep-sea fish. Then larger predators eat these smaller fish and crustaceans. This is where the anglerfish, viperfish, dragonfish, and gulper eels fit in. They are eating other animals that are already part of the deep-sea food web. And at the very top, you have the apex predators, like the giant squid or colossal squid, which eat large fish and other squid. They are the top of this dark, deep-sea food chain. So, the energy flow is sunlight, surface, phytoplankton, marine snow, falls, detritivores, small midwater animals, smaller predators, larger predators, apex predators. It is a long chain, and at each step, energy is lost. This is why there are fewer and fewer animals as you go higher up the food chain, especially in the deep sea, where the original food source, marine snow, is already so scarce. This explains why large predators are much rarer than smaller ones, or detritivores. There simply isn't enough energy to support huge populations of big, active hunters. The life cycle of these predators is also slow. Because food is scarce and metabolism is slow, they grow very slowly. They live for a very long time, and they reproduce slowly. They might lay very few eggs, but they invest a lot of energy in each one, making sure the young have the best chance to survive. This is typical for deep-sea life, slow and steady survival. Consider the challenges of reproduction for these predators. Finding a mate in total darkness and vast emptiness is incredibly difficult. Some anglerfish have a very strange solution. Male anglerfish are often tiny compared to the females. The male finds a female using chemical cues, or maybe light signals. Once he finds her, he bites onto her body. His mouth and blood vessels then fuse with her body. He becomes a permanent parasite. He gets food from her blood. In return, he provides sperm when she needs to reproduce. This way, the female always has a male ready for reproduction, and neither has to waste energy searching for a mate in the huge empty ocean. It is an extreme adaptation, but it makes sense in a world where finding a partner is almost as hard as finding food. This strategy is also directly linked to food. It saves massive amounts of energy that would otherwise be spent on finding a mate. The predatory strategies in the deep sea are a testament to the power of evolution. Faced with extreme darkness, immense pressure, freezing cold, and almost no food, life has found incredible ways to survive and even thrive. The bioluminescent lures, the huge mouths, the needle-sharp teeth, the expandable stomachs, the extreme senses of smell and touch, and the patient ambush tactics are all solutions to the problem of finding and catching food where there is almost no food to be found. These creatures are not just surviving, they are masters of their unique, challenging environment. They show us that life is incredibly adaptable. They are strange, often not beautiful in a human sense, but perfectly designed for their world. Their ability to hunt in such conditions is a marvel. It truly highlights the ingenuity of nature. The deep sea, despite its vastness, is a very efficient ecosystem in terms of energy use. Every bit of food, every calorie, is used to its fullest potential. The predators are just one part of this system, taking advantage of the detritivores and smaller organisms that manage to survive on the falling marine snow, or, in rare cases, on the chemical energy from vents. The constant struggle for food shapes every aspect of their lives, from their body shape to their behavior. They are silent hunters in a silent world, relying on trickery, patience, and a heightened sense of the unseen to survive. They are truly alien to us, but perfectly at home in the deepest, darkest parts of our planet. They continue to surprise us with their unique ways of living, and especially their unique ways of eating. They are the ultimate survivors in the hardest places to find a meal, and their stories are still being discovered by scientists exploring these vast, dark waters. Every new creature found, every new behavior observed, adds another piece to the puzzle of how life survives, and even hunts, in this incredibly challenging environment. We often think of hunters as fast and powerful, but in the deep sea, the best hunters are often the ones who are most patient, most deceptive, and most efficient with their precious energy. Their hunting grounds are endless, but their prey is always rare, and they have adapted in truly astonishing ways to meet this constant challenge. They are a constant reminder of how life can overcome any obstacle, even the total absence of light and food. They are truly fascinating creatures. And so, we finish this discussion on how predators find and hunt in the dark. We have covered the strange lights, the keen senses, and the clever traps they set. Next, we will move to even more specialized ways of getting food. We will talk about animals that live together, sharing food. We will talk about giant food feasts that happen very, very rarely. These are other unique and important parts of what deep-sea creatures eat. Part 4. Specialized diets, symbiosis, and ephemeral feasts. We have talked about the deep-sea environment. It is a place of extreme pressure, freezing cold, and total darkness. We learned that most food comes from marine snow, which is dead bits falling from above. We also learned about chemosynthesis, where bacteria make food from chemicals in special places. We then talked about the animals that eat this marine snow, the detritivores and scavengers. And we talked about the predators that hunt other animals in the dark. Now, we will explore some even more unique and specialized ways that deep-sea creatures get their food. Not all deep-sea creatures fit neatly into the groups we have discussed. Some have very, very specific diets. Some live very closely with other creatures to get food. And some rely on huge, but very rare, food events. These are called ephemeral feasts. Ephemeral means lasting for a very short time. Feast means a lot of food. So, a short-lasting big meal. Let us start with a simple idea. One creature living on or in another creature to get food. This is called parasitism. A parasite is an organism that lives on or in another organism, called the host, and gets its food from the host, usually harming the host in the process. The parasite gets food, but the host gets hurt. In the deep sea, we find examples of parasitism. For example, some types of deep sea worms are parasites. They might live inside the gut of a larger deep sea fish, eating some of the fish's food after it has been digested. Or they might live on the outside of a fish, sucking blood or body fluids. This is a way for the parasite to get food without having to hunt or filter. It is an easier way to get food in a food-poor environment. Another example of deep-sea parasites can be found among tiny crustaceans called copepods. Some copepods are free-swimming, eating small particles, but other copepods are parasitic. They might attach to the gills of a deep-sea fish. They might attach to the skin. They then feed on the blood or tissues of the fish. They are very small, but they get their food this way. The fish is the host. The copepod is the parasite. The fish gets little or no benefit. The copepod gets all its food. This is a very common way of life in all environments, even in the deep sea. It is a way of getting food that requires little effort from the parasite, as the host does all the hard work finding food or surviving. One unusual example that is debated is the relationship between male and female anglerfish. We talked about anglerfish in the last part. The females are big and have lures. The males are often very tiny. When a male finds a female, he bites onto her. He then fuses with her body. His blood vessels join hers. He lives off her blood. This sounds very much like parasitism. He takes nutrients directly from her, but in return, he is always there to provide sperm when she needs to lay eggs. So it is also a benefit for the female. This makes it more complicated than pure parasitism. It is a strange form of symbiosis that started with the male being a parasite, but then becoming an essential part of the female's life. This is another example of how food scarcity and the difficulty of finding a mate in the vast deep sea lead to very unusual adaptations. The male gets food without hunting. The female gets a mate without searching. Both save energy. Now, let us move to symbiosis, where both partners benefit. This is called mutualism. Mutualism is when two different kinds of organisms live together, and both of them get something good out of the relationship. They help each other. This is a very important way to get food in the deep sea, especially at the special places we discussed: hydrothermal vents and cold seeps. Remember chemosynthesis? This is where bacteria make food from chemicals. These bacteria are the primary producers at vents and seeps. They are the base of a completely different food web. Many deep-sea animals living at these vents and seeps do not directly eat the bacteria. Instead, they have the bacteria living inside them. It is a partnership. The animal gives the bacteria a safe home and brings them the chemicals they need. In return, the bacteria make food for the animal. Both win. Both benefit. The most famous example of this amazing partnership is the giant tube worm. Its scientific name is Riftia pachyptila. These worms are found at hydrothermal vents. They are truly spectacular. They are very large, much larger than any worm you might imagine. They can grow up to 3 meters, about 10 feet long. They have no mouth. They have no digestive system. They have no gut. How can an animal that big live without a mouth or a gut? It is because of their symbiotic relationship with bacteria. Let us explain how the giant tube worm gets its food. First, the worm has a very special part of its body called the trophosome. Trophosome means feeding body. This organ makes up a very large part of the worm's body. Inside this trophosome, there are billions and billions of chemosynthetic bacteria. These bacteria are the worm's food makers. They live inside the worm, safe and sound. Second, the hydrothermal vents release hot water. This water is full of chemicals. Very important chemicals for the bacteria are hydrogen sulfide, that rotten egg smell, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. These chemicals are usually harmful to most life, but the bacteria in the tube worm can use them. Third, the tube worm has a bright red plume at the top of its body. This plume sticks out into the water around the vent. This red plume is very important. It acts like a gill. It absorbs the chemicals from the vent water. It absorbs hydrogen sulfide. It absorbs oxygen. It absorbs carbon dioxide. The plume is red because it contains a special type of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the molecule that carries oxygen in our blood and makes our blood red. The tube worm's hemoglobin is special because it can bind to both oxygen and hydrogen sulfide without the hydrogen sulfide poisoning the worm. It is like a special chemical magnet that picks up the chemicals the bacteria need. Fourth, the worm then transports these chemicals through its blood down to the trophosome, where the bacteria live. It delivers a constant supply of hydrogen sulfide, oxygen, and carbon dioxide directly to the bacteria. It is like providing a continuous fuel line to a factory. Fifth, once the bacteria have these chemicals, they perform chemosynthesis. They use the energy from breaking down hydrogen sulfide to convert carbon dioxide into organic compounds. They make sugars. They make other food molecules. They are literally making food inside the worm's body using chemicals from the vent. This is the food production. Sixth, The tube worm then gets its food from these bacteria. The bacteria reproduce rapidly. The worm digests some of the bacteria directly. It also absorbs the organic compounds that the bacteria produce. So, the worm is being fed constantly from the inside by its tiny bacterial partners. It is like having a private chef who lives inside you and cooks food from strange chemicals. This is how a giant animal can live without a mouth or a gut. It is completely dependent on its internal bacteria. This partnership is a perfect example of mutualism. The tube worm benefits because it gets a constant supply of food in an environment where outside food is very rare. The bacteria benefit because they get a safe home inside the worm and a steady supply of the chemicals they need to make food. They are protected from predators. They are protected from the harsh outside environment. They get all their ingredients delivered. Both organisms cannot live without the other. This symbiosis is the foundation for how these amazing, dense communities thrive at hydrothermal vents. It is a completely self-sufficient food system, powered by Earth's internal heat and chemicals, not by the sun. Besides giant tube worms, many other animals at hydrothermal vents and cold seeps also have chemosynthetic bacteria living inside them. For example, many types of clams and mussels found at these sites. These clams and mussels are often very large. They have special bacteria living in their gills. Their gills are much larger than normal clam gills to hold all these bacteria. Just like the tube worms, the clams and mussels take in the chemical-rich water. They absorb the hydrogen sulfide, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. They transport these chemicals to the bacteria in their gills. The bacteria then perform chemosynthesis and make food. The clams and mussels then get their food from these bacteria. Unlike the tube worm, these clams and mussels often still have mouths and guts. They can filter feed on marine snow, if some is available, or on free-living bacteria in the water. But the vast majority of their food comes from their internal chemosynthetic bacteria. So their main food source is not marine snow, but the food made by the bacteria inside them. This is why they can grow so large and be so abundant in these specific areas. They have a direct, reliable food supply. Other examples of symbiosis at vents and seeps include some types of snails that farm bacteria on their shells or in their specialized body parts, and some shrimp that scrape bacterial mats directly from the rocks around the vents. These bacterial mats are huge colonies of free-living chemosynthetic bacteria. The shrimp eat these bacteria, so it is not always inside the animal, but still a direct connection to the chemosynthetic food source. These animals rely entirely on the chemical energy, not on sunlight. They are truly alien ecosystems, living completely apart from the sun-driven world. Now, let us shift to a very different kind of food source: ephemeral feasts. Ephemeral means lasting for a very short time. Feasts means large amounts of food. So, these are large food sources that appear rarely and last only for a short time, relative to the deep ocean's slow pace. In the vast, food-scarce deep sea, such feasts are incredibly important. They are like giant, unexpected buffets. They provide a massive amount of energy that can support many, many animals for a long time, but they are rare. So, animals must be very good at finding them and eating as much as possible, as fast as possible. The most famous and spectacular ephemeral feast is a whale fall. A whale fall happens when a large whale, like a blue whale or a sperm whale, dies in the open ocean and sinks to the deep sea floor. Imagine the size of a whale. It is enormous. When it sinks, it is like a giant food package dropping from the sky. A single whale fall can provide as much food as thousands of years of marine snow to a small area of the deep sea floor. It is a truly massive amount of organic matter, a huge burst of energy. Whale falls are rare events. Whales are not dying and sinking everywhere, all the time, but when they do, they create an amazing, temporary ecosystem. Scientists have studied whale falls by sinking dead whales on purpose or by finding them with robots. They have discovered that a whale fall goes through different stages, and each stage supports different types of animals. It is a long, slow process of decay and consumption. Let us look at the stages of a whale fall. Stage 1, the mobile scavenger stage. This is the very first stage. When a dead whale sinks, it releases chemicals into the water. It releases the smell of decaying flesh. Deep sea scavengers can detect these smells from many kilometers away. They have an incredible sense of smell, or chemoreception. They quickly swim towards the whale. They are fast for deep sea animals. They are in a race to get to the food first. Who are these mobile scavengers? Hagfish. These are ancient, eel-like fish. They are true scavengers. They have special mouths with tooth-like plates. They bore into the flesh of the whale. They eat the soft tissues. They can produce huge amounts of slime to protect themselves from predators. They are like living garbage disposals. They eat and eat and eat. They are often the first to arrive, and they feast until they are full. Deep sea sharks. Some deep sea sharks, like sleeper sharks, are large scavengers. They can take huge bites out of the whale's carcass. Their sharp teeth are perfect for tearing off large chunks of flesh. They are powerful. They also eat very quickly. Grenadiers, also known as rat tails. These are common deep-sea fish. Many species are scavengers. They will come to the whale fall and pick off bits of flesh. They are also very good at sensing chemicals in the water. Deep-sea crabs and amphipods. These crustaceans are also mobile scavengers. Amphipods are like tiny, shrimp-like creatures. They can gather in huge numbers on a whale carcass. They will swarm the whale, eating every bit of soft tissue. They can strip a whale down to its bones very quickly. Imagine millions of tiny insects swarming a carcass on land. It is like that, but in the deep ocean, in the dark. During this stage, the scavengers eat the soft tissues of the whale, the muscle, the fat, the organs. They eat very, very quickly. They eat as much as they can. Why? Because this feast is temporary. Other scavengers will come. The food will not last forever. They need to store as much energy as possible. This stage can last for several months, sometimes up to a year or two, depending on the size of the whale and the number of scavengers. They consume hundreds of kilograms of flesh every day. It is an incredible display of rapid consumption in a normally slow-moving world. The water around the whale fall becomes very cloudy with all the activity, all the eating, all the bits floating around. Stage 2, the opportunist stage. After the mobile scavengers have eaten most of the soft flesh, what is left are mostly bones and some tough, leftover tissue. This is when a different group of animals moves in. These are called opportunists because they take advantage of what is left. They are not the fast, powerful scavengers. They are smaller. They are often worms and small crustaceans. This stage is dominated by animals that can feed on the last bits of tissue or on the organic matter that has soaked into the surrounding sediment. This stage can last for years, even decades. The most amazing creatures in this stage are the bone-eating worms. These worms are called osedacs. Osedacs means bone eater. These are very strange worms. Like the giant tube worms, they have no mouth and no gut. How do they eat bones? Bones are very hard. Osedacs worms are unique. They are often found growing on the bones of whale falls. They have a root-like structure that they grow into the bone. They secrete acid. This acid helps to dissolve the bone, but they do not eat the bone directly. Instead, the bones of whales contain a lot of fat and oil. Whales are very fatty animals, which helps them float and stay warm. This fat and oil are trapped inside the bone marrow. The osedacs worms burrow into the bone to get at this fat and oil, and just like the giant tube worm, osedacs worms also have symbiotic bacteria living inside them. These bacteria are special. They help the worm digest the fat and oil from the bone. They break down the complex fat molecules into simpler food that the worm can use. So, the worm provides a home for the bacteria and access to the bone's oil. The bacteria, in turn, provide food for the worm. It is another example of mutualism, a very specialized one for a very specialized diet. The reproduction of osedacs worms is also very strange, another adaptation to the deep sea's challenges. The female osedacs worms are relatively large. The males are incredibly tiny. They live inside the female's body. They are like sperm packets. A female osedacs worm can have hundreds of tiny males living inside her. This makes sure that when a female osedacs finds a whale bone, she always has a male available to fertilize her eggs. She does not need to waste energy finding a mate in the vast, empty, deep sea. This is a very efficient way to reproduce, just like the anglerfish. Besides osedacs worms, many other small polychaete worms, mollusks, and crustaceans will also colonize the bones and the surrounding sediment during this stage. They are feeding on the remaining scraps of flesh or on the organic matter that has seeped into the sediment from the whale's decay. They are picking the bones clean, very slowly, over many years. Stage 3, the sulfophilic stage. Sulfophilic means sulfur-loving. This is the final and longest stage of a whale fall. After decades, or even a century, almost all the soft tissue and bone fat have been eaten by scavengers and opportunists. What is left are mostly just the bones themselves, cleaned of most obvious organic matter. But even the bones hold surprises. The key to this stage is a special type of bacteria. These bacteria are anaerobic. Anaerobic means they do not need oxygen to live. They live inside the bones, in the places where the fat and oil used to be. They continue to break down the very last bits of remaining fat and oil in the bones. As these bacteria break down the fats and oils without oxygen, they produce hydrogen sulfide gas. Remember hydrogen sulfide? It is that chemical found at hydrothermal vents that smells like rotten eggs. So, the decaying bones become like a tiny, temporary cold seep. They slowly release hydrogen sulfide into the surrounding water and sediment. And what happens when there is hydrogen sulfide? Chemosynthesis. Other chemosynthetic bacteria, similar to those at vents and seeps, start to grow around the whale bones. They use the hydrogen sulfide coming out of the bones as their energy source. They make food. So the whale fall, which started as a massive pile of organic food, becomes a temporary chemosynthetic ecosystem. It is like the whale's bones are acting as a very slow-release chemical battery. And then, just like at vents and seeps, animals that depend on chemosynthesis arrive. These include mussels, clams, and specialized worms that have symbiotic bacteria living inside them. They are feeding on the food made by the chemosynthetic bacteria that are fueled by the decaying whale bones. These animals can live for many, many decades on this last, slow trickle of energy from the whale's skeleton. This final stage can last for 50 to 100 years, or even longer, depending on the size of the whale. The whale fall effectively becomes a very slow-motion mini chemosynthetic vent. It is an incredible transformation of energy. From a giant organic feast, the energy is slowly converted into chemical energy that supports a whole new community of life. The overall importance of whale falls is immense for the deep sea. They are like isolated islands of rich food. In a vast, empty ocean, these whale falls provide oases of life. They allow for the survival and reproduction of many specialized deep-sea creatures that might not exist without them. They also act as stepping stones. Imagine a larva of a vent creature or a cold seep creature needs to find a new vent or seep. These whale falls, with their temporary chemosynthetic communities, might act as temporary homes. A larva could settle on a whale fall, grow up a bit, and then eventually release its own larvae, some of which might drift to a true vent or seep. They connect different parts of the deep ocean. They are vital for the spread of deep-sea life. They show the incredible adaptability of life to find and use energy in any form. Besides whale falls, other ephemeral feasts can also occur. Wood falls, trees, and other plant matter from land can fall into rivers, flow into the ocean, and eventually sink to the deep seafloor. These are called wood falls. Wood is rich in cellulose, a type of organic carbon. Just like whale falls, wood falls provide a temporary food source. They are smaller than whale falls, but still significant. When wood sinks, different types of specialized organisms colonize it. Some types of bivalves, which are clams or mussels, are wood-boring. They burrow into the wood and eat it. They often have symbiotic bacteria inside them that help them digest the cellulose in the wood. Cellulose is very hard to digest. So, these bacteria are essential. Other worms and crustaceans also feed on the decaying wood. As the wood decays, it can also produce hydrogen sulfide, just like whale bones. This means that chemosynthetic bacteria can also thrive around wood falls, supporting specialized communities of mussels, clams, and worms. So, wood falls also create mini chemosynthetic ecosystems, fueled by decaying plant matter. They are less common than marine snow, but more common than whale falls. They are another important temporary food source in the deep. Other possible ephemeral feasts include large clumps of algae or kelp that detach from coastal areas and sink to the deep, or even human-made objects that sink and are made of organic materials, though these are less natural. Any large input of organic matter that reaches the deep seafloor creates a temporary oasis of food and life. These ephemeral feasts highlight the opportunistic nature of deep sea life. Life is constantly searching for any available energy, no matter how rare or strange. Finally, let us briefly touch on a curious feature of some deep sea animals: deep sea gigantism. Gigantism means becoming very large. Many deep sea animals are much larger than their relatives in shallow water. For example, giant isopods, like giant sea woodlice, giant amphipods, giant squid, giant sea spiders, and very large sea cucumbers. Why do they get so big in a food-scarce environment? There are several ideas about why deep-sea gigantism occurs, and many of them relate to food and energy efficiency. Slow metabolism. We know deep-sea animals have very slow metabolisms because it is cold and food is scarce. A slow metabolism means they live a slow life. They use energy very slowly. They grow very slowly. But because they live longer, they have more time to grow larger. If you live for 100 years, even if you grow a tiny bit each year, you can become very big. Larger food storage. A larger body can store more energy. In an environment where food is rare and unpredictable, being able to store a lot of energy from a single large meal, like a whale fall, is a huge advantage. A big body can hold more fat and more energy reserves. So, when a big meal comes, a large animal can eat a lot and survive for a very long time until the next rare meal. Efficient foraging. A larger body might allow for larger sensory organs. For example, a giant squid has the largest eyes of any animal on Earth. These huge eyes are perfect for detecting the faint bioluminescence from far away. Larger chemoreceptors can smell food from further distances. So, being larger can make an animal better at finding the scarce food that is available. Less predation pressure. For very large animals, there are fewer predators. Once an animal reaches a very large size, it might not have to worry as much about being eaten. This allows it to invest more energy into finding food and less into avoiding predators. This helps it survive longer and get enough food to sustain its large size. So, deep-sea gigantism is not a contradiction to food scarcity. Instead, it is an adaptation to it. It is a strategy to survive by making the most of infrequent, large food sources, or by being incredibly efficient at finding and using the little food that is available over a very long lifespan. It is another example of how every aspect of deep-sea life, even body size, is shaped by the constant struggle for energy in a food-poor world. In summary, for this part, deep-sea creatures show incredible flexibility in how they get food. Some are parasites, living off other animals. Many form mutualistic partnerships, especially at vents and the seeps, where bacteria live inside animals and make food from chemicals. The giant tube worm is a perfect example of this, living entirely on food made by its internal bacteria. Then there are the very rare but important ephemeral feasts, like whale falls and wood falls. These are huge, temporary food sources that support a unique succession of life stages, from fast scavengers to bone-eating worms, and finally to chemosynthetic bacteria and the animals that rely on them. These ephemeral feasts are vital for supporting biodiversity and for connecting different parts of the deep ocean. And finally, deep-sea gigantism shows how even large size can be a way to survive efficiently when food is scarce, by allowing for better food, storage and detection, and a slower, longer life. All these specialized diets and feeding strategies highlight the amazing adaptability of life in the deep, dark ocean, where every bit of energy is precious and nothing goes to waste. These are some of the most alien and fascinating ways that life finds a meal on our planet. Next, we will connect all these ideas into a larger picture of deep-sea food webs. We will also talk about how humans are impacting these delicate food systems. Part 5. Deep-sea food webs, human impact, and future food security. we have now traveled very deep into the ocean. We have explored the harsh conditions, the crushing pressure, the freezing cold, and the total darkness. We have learned about the basic food sources for this extreme environment. We talked about marine snow, the constant slow fall of dead bits from the sunlit surface. We talked about chemosynthesis, where special bacteria make food from chemicals from inside the earth, found at places like hydrothermal vents and cold seeps. We also discussed the very rare but important ephemeral feasts, like whale falls, which bring huge amounts of food suddenly to the deep sea. Then, we looked at the creatures that eat this food. We saw the patient detritivores and scavengers, and we saw the strange predators with their glowing lures and giant mouths. Now, in this final part, we will bring all these pieces together. We will see how they connect to form the deep-sea food webs, and we will talk about how humans are now affecting this very old, very slow, and very delicate system. We will also think about the future of the deep sea and its food. Let us start by understanding the deep-sea food webs. A food web shows how food energy moves from one living thing to another. It shows who eats whom. In the deep sea, the food webs are very different from food webs on land or in shallow waters. This is because the primary ways food is made are so unique. Most of the deep ocean, the vast majority of it, relies on marine snow. So, the main deep sea food web starts with this falling detritus. This is the foundation. It is the very first step of food coming into the system for most deep sea life. Think about how this food energy moves. First, we have the marine snow. This is the dead organic matter. Tiny dead plants from the surface, tiny dead animals, animal poop, shed skin, and small bits of larger dead creatures. This marine snow is the very first source of energy for most deep sea life. It is the beginning of the food web for the wide open parts of the deep ocean. Second, the animals that eat the marine snow. These are the detritivores and suspension feeders we talked about. Detritivores are like the cleaners of the seafloor. They eat the mud that has marine snow mixed in it. Examples include sea cucumbers, which slowly sweep up the bottom sediment with their tentacles, processing huge amounts of mud to get tiny bits of food. Many types of worms also eat the mud. These creatures are very slow. They have slow metabolisms. They are very efficient at extracting every bit of energy from the low-quality food. They are the first eaters of the dead bits that fall. They turn the energy from the falling detritus into their own body mass. Suspension feeders are like living filters. They stay in one place and filter the water for falling marine snow particles. Examples include deep-sea sponges, deep-sea corals, and sea lilies. They also have very slow metabolisms. They grow very slowly. They simply wait for the food to drift to them. They capture it directly from the water column before it even reaches the seafloor. They also turn the energy from the falling detritus into their own body mass. So, marine snow is eaten by these primary consumers. They are the first level of animals to get energy from the falling dead stuff. They are the base of the deep sea food chain for most of the ocean. Third, these primary consumers are then eaten by small predators. These are animals like certain types of deep sea shrimp, small crabs, or small fish. These small predators hunt and eat the sea cucumbers, worms, or other small creatures that are feeding on the marine snow. They also might eat other small animals that live in the water column and also filter marine snow. They are the second level of consumers. They get their energy from eating the detritivores and suspension feeders. Fourth, these small predators are then eaten by larger predators. These are the big hunters of the deep, like the anglerfish, viperfish, and dragonfish. They have their amazing lures, huge mouths, and sharp teeth. They hunt and eat the smaller fish, shrimp, and other creatures in the deep. They are the third level of consumers. They get their energy from eating the smaller predators. Their lives are also very slow. They wait patiently. They conserve energy. They take advantage of every rare opportunity to catch a meal. Fifth, at the very top of this deep-sea food web, we have the apex predators. Apex means top. These are the largest and most powerful hunters, like the giant squid or the colossal squid. They hunt and eat large deep-sea fish, other squid, and sometimes even smaller sharks. They are the top of this particular food chain. They are very rare because there is not enough food in the deep sea to support many of them. Now, it is very important to understand that at each step of this food chain, energy is lost. When an animal eats another animal, it does not get all the energy from the animal it ate. A lot of energy is lost as heat. A lot of energy is used for movement, for staying warm, even if it is cold, for digesting food, for growing, for reproducing. So only a small part of the energy from one level actually makes it to the next level. This is why food chains usually have a pyramid shape. There are many organisms at the bottom, marine snow, fewer organisms at the next level, detritivores, even fewer at the next, small predators, and very, very few at the very top, apex predators. In the deep sea, this pyramid is even more squashed because the original food source, marine snow, is already so scarce. It is a very efficient system because no energy is wasted, but it is also a very limited system. Let us also remember the microbial loop. Microbes are very tiny living things, like bacteria. They are everywhere. They are in the water. They are in the sediment. They are on the marine snow. They are also eating the marine snow. They break it down. They decompose it. They release nutrients. But these microbes themselves are also food. Many tiny detritivores, and even some larger ones, eat the microbes. So, the microbes are constantly recycling energy and nutrients. They are like a very busy, tiny workforce that makes sure every last bit of dead material is processed. They turn what would be waste into usable food again for other parts of the food web. This is an essential part of the deep sea food web, ensuring that scarce resources are used to their absolute maximum. They ensure that even the smallest amount of organic matter gets broken down and its energy made available. This is crucial for the deep sea, where every single calorie matters. Now, let us look at the other main deep sea food web, the chemosynthesis-based food web. This is found only at special places like hydrothermal vents and cold seeps. This food web is very different because it does not rely on sunlight at all. It relies on chemicals from the earth. First, the base of this food web is the chemosynthetic bacteria. These bacteria use chemicals like hydrogen sulfide or methane, which come out of the vents or seeps, as their energy source. They convert these chemicals into organic matter, into sugars, into food. They are the primary producers here. They are making food from scratch, from inorganic chemicals. Second, the animals that get food from these bacteria. Some animals eat the bacteria directly. For example, some deep-sea shrimp will graze on thick mats of bacteria that grow on the rocks around the vents. They are like tiny cows grazing on a field of microbes. More famously, many animals have these bacteria living inside them in a mutualistic symbiosis. The giant tube worm is the best example. It has billions of chemosynthetic bacteria in a special organ. The worm provides chemicals to the bacteria, and the bacteria make food for the worm. Giant clams and mussels at vents and seeps also have these symbiotic bacteria in their gills. They are getting most of their food from these internal partners. These animals grow very large and are very abundant because their food source is constantly being produced right there, on the spot. Third, these animals that live off chemosynthetic bacteria are then eaten by specialized predators that live around the vents and seeps. These might be vent crabs, certain types of vent fish, or some octopuses. These predators are adapted to the hot, chemically rich waters of the vents. They eat the tube worms, clams, mussels, and shrimp that are fed by the bacteria. They are the higher levels of the chemosynthetic food web. This chemosynthetic food web is like a completely separate, self-contained little world. It is powered by Earth's internal energy, not the sun. It is a very dense and active food web compared to the rest of the deep sea, but it is very, very localized. It only exists where the chemicals come out. So, it is like a series of scattered, bustling cities in a vast, empty desert. Finally, let us consider the ephemeral feast food webs, like whale falls. These are not a continuous source of food. They are rare, temporary events, but they are very important. When they happen, when a dead whale sinks, it provides a massive amount of organic food. First, mobile scavengers quickly arrive. Hagfish, deep-sea sharks, grenadiers, and amphipods swarm the whale. They eat the soft tissues very, very quickly. They consume as much as they can. They are like the first wave of a hungry army. This is a huge burst of energy into the local deep-sea food web. Second, after the soft tissues are gone, opportunists move in. These are animals like the bone-eating ossidax worms. They have symbiotic bacteria that help them digest the fats and oils inside the whale bones. Other small worms and crustaceans will feed on the remaining bits of tissue and the organic matter that has soaked into the sediment around the bones. This stage lasts for many years. Third, as the bones decay even further, they release hydrogen sulfide. This supports a chemosynthetic community. Bacteria that use hydrogen sulfide grow on and around the bones. Then, animals like chemosynthetic clams and mussels, similar to those at cold seeps, colonize the whale bones. They rely on the food made by these bacteria. This stage can last for a very, very long time, for decades or even a century. So, a whale fall acts like a stepping stone. It provides a huge feast, then slowly turns into a long-lasting chemical oasis. It connects the detritus-based food web through the initial scavengers with the chemosynthesis-based food web through the later stages. These ephemeral feasts are vital for maintaining biodiversity in the deep sea. They provide rare opportunities for growth and reproduction for many specialized creatures. They allow life to exist in places it otherwise could not. All these deep-sea food webs, whether based on marine snow, chemosynthesis, or ephemeral feasts, are connected. The overall picture is of a slow, efficient system. Energy is always scarce. Life finds a way, but it is a very careful, very slow way. Every calorie counts. Every bit of food is important. The animals are adapted to conserve energy, to grow slowly, to reproduce slowly, and to take advantage of any food opportunity. This is a very old, very stable system that has been working for millions of years. But now, humans are starting to have a big impact on these delicate, deep-sea food webs. Our actions at the surface, and increasingly in the deep, are changing these ancient ecosystems. And because deep-sea life is so slow and so dependent on scarce food, it is very vulnerable to disruption. Once we damage it, it takes a very, very long time for it to recover, if it recovers at all. Let us talk about human impact. First, deep-sea fishing. For a long time, people thought the deep sea was too deep, too dark, and too empty to be fished. But with new technology, we can now fish in deeper and deeper waters. And this is having a huge impact. The most damaging type of deep-sea fishing is bottom trawling. Imagine a very, very large, heavy net. This net has big, heavy doors, or weights, that keep it open. This net is dragged along the seafloor. It is pulled by a ship. As it is dragged, it scoops up everything in its path. It catches fish, but it also catches and crushes everything else. It is like plowing a field, but in the deep ocean, where things grow incredibly slowly. What does bottom trawling damage? Deep-sea corals and sponges. We talked about deep-sea corals. They are suspension feeders. They grow very, very slowly. Some deep-sea corals can be thousands of years old. A single pass of a trawl net can completely destroy a deep-sea coral forest that has been growing for centuries or millennia. It can crush centuries of growth in minutes. These corals and sponges provide essential habitat for many other deep-sea animals. They are like the trees in a forest. If you clear-cut a forest, all the animals that live in it are gone. If you destroy deep-sea corals, all the fish, shrimp, and other animals that live among them are also gone. Seafloor habitat. The bottom of the deep sea is often soft mud. Trawling stirs up this mud. It leaves long, deep scars on the seafloor. It destroys the burrows of worms and other creatures that live in the sediment. It kills the detritivores that live on the bottom. It disrupts the very base of the detritus-based food web. Slow recovery. Deep-sea environments are very cold. Life grows very slowly. If a coral colony is destroyed, it might take thousands of years for it to grow back to its original size, if it ever does. If the seafloor is plowed, it will take a very, very long time for the sediments to settle and for the small organisms to recolonize. This means the damage from deep-sea trawling is often permanent on human timescales. It is not like shallow water, where things grow back in years. It is much, much slower. What fish are caught in the deep sea? Some deep-sea fish, like orange roughy and grenadiers, are targeted by deep-sea fishing. These fish are often very old. Orange roughy can live for over 150 years. They grow very slowly. They reproduce very slowly. This means they are very, very vulnerable to overfishing. If you catch too many of these fish, their populations cannot recover quickly. It takes decades, even centuries, for them to grow back. Many deep-sea fish stocks have already been severely depleted because of this. Their slow life history, which is an adaptation to food scarcity, makes them very easy to wipe out by fast human fishing. This directly removes predators and other parts of the food web. It is like taking away the very rare top predators and leaving nothing. Second, pollution. Our waste does not stay on land or in shallow waters. The ocean is connected. Everything eventually finds its way into the deep. Plastics and microplastics. This is a huge problem. Plastic does not disappear. It breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics. These plastics, from huge fishing nets to tiny plastic beads, from cosmetics, sink into the deep sea. They are everywhere. Ingestion. Deep sea creatures, especially filter feeders and detritivores, accidentally eat plastic. They cannot tell the difference between a small piece of plastic and a piece of marine snow. They mistake it for food. False fullness. If an animal eats plastic, its stomach might feel full, but it gets no nutrition. So, it starves, even though its stomach is full of plastic. Blockage. Larger pieces of plastic can block an animal's digestive system, causing it to die. Chemical transfer. Plastics can also absorb harmful chemicals from the seawater. When an animal eats the plastic, these harmful chemicals can enter its body. These chemicals can then move up the food chain. So, the small fish that eats plastic gets chemicals, then the larger fish that eats the small fish gets even more chemicals. This is called bioaccumulation. This can poison the animals and disrupt their body functions. Chemical pollution. Other chemicals, from land-based pollution, industrial waste, or even sunken ships, also reach the deep sea. Heavy metals, oil, and other toxic substances can settle in the deep sea sediments. They can accumulate in the bodies of deep sea creatures. They can affect their health, their reproduction, and their ability to find food. This pollution impacts the very basic parts of the food web, from the microbes to the detritivores. It changes the chemical environment that these organisms have adapted to over millions of years. Noise pollution. The deep sea is a very quiet place, naturally, but now it is getting noisy. Noise from shipping, from oil and gas exploration, using loud air guns, and from deep sea mining exploration. Sound travels very far and very well in water. This constant noise can affect deep sea animals. Many deep sea animals use sound to communicate, to find mates, and to find food. Whales, for example, use sound to echolocate for prey and to talk to each other. Constant noise can disrupt their ability to do this. It can stress them. It can force them to leave their feeding grounds or their breeding grounds. This directly impacts their ability to get food and reproduce. Third, climate change. The changes happening in our atmosphere are also affecting the deep ocean, even though it seems far away. Ocean acidification. The ocean absorbs a lot of carbon dioxide from the air. When carbon dioxide dissolves in water, it forms carbonic acid. This makes the ocean more acidic. This is called ocean acidification. How does this affect deep sea food webs? Many deep sea organisms, like deep sea corals, clams, mussels, including those at vents and seeps, and tiny shell-building organisms like foraminifera, use calcium carbonate to build their shells or skeletons. An acidic ocean makes it harder for them to build these structures. It can even cause existing shells to dissolve. If these shell-building organisms are damaged, it impacts the base of the food web. The tiny foraminifera are a key part of marine snow. If their shells are weaker, they might break down faster, or their populations might decline, leading to less food falling to the deep. Deep sea corals, which provide habitat, will struggle to grow, further damaging the ecosystem. The impacts of acidification are slow, but they are constant and widespread, affecting a fundamental process of deep sea life. Ocean warming and oxygen. Minimum zones. While the very deep sea stays cold, changes in temperature at the surface can affect ocean currents. This can change how oxygen is distributed in the ocean. Warmer surface waters hold less oxygen. This can lead to the expansion of oxygen minimum zones. These are areas in the mid-water depths where oxygen levels are very, very low. When oxygen is very low, most animals cannot survive there. So, as these zones expand, they become dead zones for many creatures. This affects how animals move through the water. It can block pathways for marine snow to fall freely. It can force animals into smaller areas, making them more vulnerable to predators or overfishing. It can disrupt the flow of food from the surface to the deep. Changes in surface productivity. Climate change can also affect the amount of phytoplankton growing at the surface. If surface waters become warmer, or if nutrient levels change, the growth of phytoplankton might increase or decrease in certain areas. This directly impacts the amount of marine snow. If there is less marine snow falling, then there is less food for the entire detritus-based deep sea food web. This is a direct attack on the main food source for the vast majority of the deep sea. It would mean even less food in an already food-scarce environment, making survival even harder for all creatures. This could lead to widespread starvation and ecosystem collapse in the deep. Now, let us think about the future and a very new, very serious threat: deep sea mining. Why are people thinking about mining the deep sea? Because our demand for metals is growing. We need metals like copper, nickel, cobalt, and manganese for electronics, like phones and computers, for electric car batteries, and for renewable energy technologies. Some of these metals are found in specific parts of the deep sea. There are three main types of deep sea mining being considered. Polymetallic sulfides. These are found at hydrothermal vents. Remember those amazing vent ecosystems with tube worms and chemosynthetic bacteria? These vents also create deposits of metal-rich minerals on the seafloor. Impact. Mining these areas would involve crushing and removing the active hydrothermal vents and the surrounding rocks. This would completely destroy the unique ecosystems there. It would obliterate the chemosynthetic food webs. These ecosystems are very, very old. The animals grow very slowly. Once destroyed, they would take thousands, even millions of years to recover, if they ever could. It would be like destroying an ancient forest. That is also a unique, irreplaceable city. Manganese nodules. These are potato-sized lumps of metals that sit on the surface of the abyssal plains. The abyssal plains are the vast, flat, muddy plains that make up most of the deep ocean floor. These nodules form very, very slowly, over millions of years. Impact. Mining these nodules would involve large machines crawling across the seafloor, scooping up the nodules and the top layer of sediment. This would directly destroy the habitat for countless detritivores, worms, and other small organisms that live on or in the soft mud. It would kill them. It would stir up huge clouds of sediment, called sediment plumes. These plumes can spread for many, many kilometers. They can smother filter feeders in nearby areas, burying them in mud. They can also make the water very cloudy, interfering with how animals find food, using light or other senses. The abyssal plains are very, very slow to recover. If you remove the nodules, they will not grow back in our lifetimes, or in thousands of lifetimes. If you disturb the mud, it will take centuries for it to settle and for the tiny life in it, to return. It is a slow, gradual accumulation of sediment and organic matter. This type of mining would impact the very widespread detritus-based food web, the one that supports most of the deep sea. It would remove their habitat and food source, cobalt-rich crusts. These are thin layers of metal-rich minerals that grow on the sides of deep-sea mountains. Seamounts. Impact. Mining these would involve scraping the crusts off the seamounts. This would destroy unique habitats on these mountains, which often have their own specific deep-sea coral and sponge communities. It would also create sediment plumes that could affect surrounding areas. The problem with deep-sea mining is that these ecosystems are so fragile and so slow to recover. The animals live for hundreds or thousands of years. They reproduce rarely. They grow incredibly slowly. They are adapted to extreme stability and scarcity. Our human activities, which are fast and massive, are completely out of sync with the deep-sea timescale. The damage would be permanent for us. It would remove entire communities of unique life, disrupt entire food webs, and potentially harm ecosystems far beyond the immediate mining sites. It could impact the very long-term survival of some of the most unique creatures on Earth. It is a very big risk to take for metals that we might be able to get from recycling or from other sources. This brings us to the importance of conservation and research. We need to protect the deep sea. We need to understand it before we destroy it. So much of the deep sea is still unknown. We have explored less than 1% of the deep ocean floor in detail. We are still discovering new species, new ecosystems, and new ways of life. We are still learning about how these food webs work, how energy moves, and how interconnected everything is. Need for more research. We need more scientists, more deep-sea submersibles, and more robotic explorers to study these areas. We need to map them. We need to understand the different food webs, their key species, and their vulnerabilities. We need to know where the important habitats are. We need to know how fast things grow and how they recover from disturbance. Without this basic knowledge, we cannot make good decisions about how to manage or protect the deep sea. Value of deep sea biodiversity. The deep sea holds an incredible amount of unique life. Many of these creatures are found nowhere else on Earth. They represent millions of years of evolution in extreme conditions. They could hold the key to new medicines, new materials, or new scientific insights. For example, the unique enzymes from bacteria living at hot vents are already being used in industry. Who knows what other amazing biological tools or solutions are waiting to be discovered? Losing these species before we even know they exist would be a huge loss for all of humanity. The deep sea as a global heritage. The deep ocean belongs to everyone. It is a shared heritage. What happens in the deep sea affects the entire ocean and eventually the entire planet. The deep sea plays a huge role in the global carbon cycle. For example, by storing carbon in the sediments. Its health affects the health of our planet. So, protecting its food webs and its ecosystems is not just about protecting strange creatures. It is about protecting a vital part of Earth's life support system. In conclusion, the deep seas is a world shaped by scarcity. Food is incredibly rare for most of its vast extent. Life there has adapted in astonishing ways, from patiently waiting for marine snow, to forming partnerships with chemical-eating bacteria, to exploiting huge, rare feasts. Every deep-sea creature, every deep-sea food web, is a testament to the power of evolution and the resilience of life. In the most challenging conditions on Earth, they are masters of efficiency, living slow, long lives by making the absolute most of every tiny bit of energy they can find. But this very efficiency, this very slowness, makes them incredibly vulnerable to human actions. Our fast-paced, resource-hungry world is now reaching into their slow, ancient realm. Deep-sea fishing, pollution, climate change, and the growing threat of deep-sea mining are disrupting the very foundations of these food webs. They are destroying habitats that took millennia to form, harming creatures that live for centuries, and consuming resources that will not replenish in human timescales. The future of what deep-sea creatures eat, and indeed the future of the deep sea itself, depends on our choices now. It depends on how much we value these hidden, fragile ecosystems. It depends on our willingness to learn more, to understand more, and to act more carefully. The deep sea is a quiet, vast, and cold place. Its creatures live slow, quiet lives, constantly seeking food in the dark. It is a world that can offer peace and wonder, a world that can help us rest. But it is also a world that is now at risk from our choices. We must remember the extreme scarcity of food in this vast realm. We must remember how slowly things happen, and we must understand that our impact can be permanent. Protecting these food webs is about protecting the resilience of life itself. It is about respecting the vast, silent, and vital heart of our planet. The deep ocean is a final frontier on Earth, a place where the fundamental struggle for food has created the most alien and remarkable forms of life. Let us hope we preserve it